Hey, it's DJ. I just wanted to respond to this week's round of asexual videos on YouTube, which are awesome, by the way. Excellent, excellent work. They're all about the topic of relationships. And I saw a lot of people really struggling with the definition of romantic relationships, really kind of talking about how romantic relationships weren't that great and how they weren't what people were looking for, even people who identify as romantic asexuals. But I also heard a real kind of strong yearning for connection with people and for relationships that are intimate, even if those relationships don't look traditional. And I think that this is important. I wanted to kind of comment on this because I think that this isn't something that just asexual people experience. There are a lot of sexual people out there that really struggle with the definition of romantic relationships. They really feel confined by it, but they don't see another option. And the people, and even if they don't feel confined by it, and even if they don't struggle with it, I think there are a lot of sexual people out there that accept its limitations and live lives that are more mediocre than they need to be because they're limited by sort of the concepts that we have to talk about romance. And it's our job as asexual people to really challenge those concepts and to explore new ways of connecting with one another and with the other people around us. And the reason that it's our job is that we don't have a choice. We're kind of already out on the raggedy edge of romance. There's a lot of conventional wisdom about romantic relationships, but pretty much all of it connects heavily to sexuality. And most of it doesn't really apply to us. So we have to make new conventional wisdom. We have to make new ways of exploring it and discovering it and writing it down and sharing it. And I think that when we talk about relationships, when we approach them, we should take kind of have respect for that burden and that role that we're playing. There's something actually that kind of makes me a little bit depressed or down or upset about seeing asexual people talk about relationships like we don't get to have them. Right? Like I saw a lot of people this week sort of being like, oh, I've never really been in a relationship. I don't really know if that's what I want, but I guess I'm okay with that. And I think that that's really doing ourselves a disservice because what we're doing there is taking someone else's definition of a romantic relationship and accepting it and saying, look, that definition over there, that definition of traditional romance, I don't want that, so I'm going to not really spend any time or energy thinking about it. And I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think we have to, rather than focusing on what we don't want, we have to focus on what we do want. We have to focus on how to define the kinds of relationships that we're looking for and then talk about how to explore them and how to build them and create them. Because we can have the power to do that. I've really kind of gone through a lot of this struggle in my own life, and it's been a very, very powerful process. And now I'm at this point where I've had tons of relationships, pretty much exclusively with sexual people. Some of them have been romantic, some of them have been not romantic, some of them have been a really interesting hybrid of romantic and not romantic. And asexuality has never been a problem. It's been something the relationships have to deal with. It's been something that certainly shaped how they form, but I've never been in a relationship that fell apart because of asexuality, or even a relationship that saw asexuality as a challenge. What I found is that when you give a sexual person a real excuse to explore non-sexual intimacy and a real excuse to explore asexiness, they love it. They never get a chance to do that. And there's something about us as people that makes us want to do that. And so, if anything, I found that being asexual is an asset once I know how to communicate it and once I know how to see that desire for asexiness that sexual people have and really work with that. And just to give you an example of what that looks like, when I was younger, I used to be really afraid of flirting. Because I thought that flirting was sexual, and I thought that if I flirted with people, or if they flirted with, like if someone flirted with me, then they wanted to be sexual with me, and I didn't want that, and that was scary. And I've since realized that flirting is almost nothing to do with sex. Like, flirting is, if you start flirting with someone, and you want to have sex with them, and they want to have sex with you, and you keep doing it for like 3 hours, eventually it can wind up being sexual. But at any point in those 3 hours, if you want anything other than sex, you can just point the flirting in that direction. Flirting just means there's energy building up between two people. And there's nothing asexier than flirting with someone and building up that energy and then showing the sexual person a totally non-sexual but totally fascinating direction to go with it. And that's something I've really kind of learned to do. And it's a skill that I recommend that you practice because it's a fun way to interact with people and a fun way to kind of bring part of yourself out. Another thing that I've found that as an asexual person I can do all the time that sexual people can't do or have a hard time doing is something called triangulation, which is, so if I'm a sexual person and I see someone and I think that they're really cool and I'm attracted to them and I want to be close to them, and then I find out that that person has a significant other, I suddenly have to back away, right? Like I go meet some woman and she's amazing and we hit it off, and then I find out she has a boyfriend and I'm like, oh, I can't become close to her because she has a boyfriend. Or if I do, it's cheating and that's a big problem. And so there's this whole moral dilemma with getting close to people who are in partner relationships. But for me as an asexual person, if I go see someone, if I hit it off with someone and form a close connection and then I find out that they're in a partner relationship, that means they have a partner who's probably as cool as they are. So it's like I get two people for the effort of one relationship. And what I'll do is I'll get really close to the first person and then I'll kind of switch and I'll focus on their partner for a while. And I'll form close relationships with both of them. And when I do that, those relationships actually become some of the more intimate and more stable relationships in my life because I kind of take an orbit around this close relationship that these two sexual people have. And neither of them are really, both of them are sexually satisfied. So I don't have to worry about like fulfilling their needs or any of that stuff. I just get to form two really close relationships with two amazing people and almost kind of become a tertiary to the relationship. Like most sexual people in romantic relationships don't do everything for one another. There's stuff that's left out there floating that they want to do, but they don't quite have a place to do. And as this sort of third asexual person in orbit around the relationship, I can spot that stuff and help to give them a place to do it. And it actually makes their relationship a lot stronger and a lot healthier. And it's a really cool model. So I'm saying that about flirting and about triangulation, just to get you thinking about the fact that we as asexual people are kind of playing by a different set of rules from everyone else. But it's fun to explore those rules. And before you say that relationships aren't something that you're into, really stop and ask yourself, what kind of relationships would be fun? And what way could you begin to explore creating that? Because there's a whole world of untapped possibilities out there.